All right, so welcome everybody. I'd like to start with just a little meditation. And this could be done laying down, it could be done seated, it could be done sort of in your favorite restorative position if you want to do something like legs up the wall or laying back over a bolster. So feel free to just take the shape that sort of feels right for you to start in. We'll do a little bit of just grounding, centering there. And we'll get into our conversation about the moon and the tarot in a little while. So for now, let's just get settled. You can close your eyes when you get to the shape that feels right for you today, and I'm just seated. And there might be a little bit of fidgeting for you, some deep breaths that you want to take, just finding that position for your hands that feels right. Palms up tends to invite a bit of energy. Palms down is a little more grounding. If it is still quite hot where you are, palms up will be a little bit more cooling. And then just beginning to drop in, to tune into yourself, your breath. How you're feeling today. Beginning to acknowledge the ground beneath your body. This earth that we all share, though we're in different locations. The particular land that you are on, and your relationship with that land, which may be historical, cultural, and also intimate, immediate. I'm on Plains, Cree, and Blackfoot land in Treaty 6 territory right now. Wherever you may come from, just taking a moment to acknowledge yourself as the part of the web of everything. And of course, the moon, which we all share. You may already have a relationship with the moon. You may notice how it affects you. You may not. Just coming off of a full moon. It's just been a couple of days. And that can feel like different things to different people. So generally the full moon is a time of sort of intense energy. It's sort of a rising and building to a peak of energy. And some of us feel that through our dreams or insomnia. Some of us feel that through an intensity of emotion that comes through. Sometimes I like to think of it as a light that shines in areas that are often dark. So sometimes things come up to the surface that haven't been there. And often the couple of days after the full moon, that energy just begins to settle, it begins to soften a little bit. And my favorite image for the couple of days after the full moon is cleaning up the morning after a party. Sort of has that energy of, you know, what has happened with all of this energy getting stirred up, and how do we need to, you know, sort of reorganize and put away the debris and, you know, take out the trash and all of that sort of stuff. Just the immediate aftermath of whatever that energy was like for you. So just taking a moment to notice how that's feeling for you. There may be some thoughts that you have about that, and it may just be something that you're feeling in your body. So we'll just take a few moments to be with you know, what it feels like to be a couple of days past the full moon. There's often an intention around the full moon of letting go, allowing something to complete. Just notice if you spent any time with that the next couple of days. You might even just right here for a moment consider if there's something that you're working on letting go of or ready to let go of. And I have, of course, pulled a tarot card for the energy of this particular moment in time and in the moon phase. So I'm going to show that card now. So you may want to just gently move up out of your shape if you're not in a position where you can easily see the screen. And we'll talk about the card together. So this is the Page of Pentacles. I'm just going to try to get it off the glare of the lights. There we go. So what I'd love for you to do in your own time is just take a good look at this image and we'll work on it together. So you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and let me know what you notice about the card, what you see in it, and also just what you feel, like what comes up for you as you look at this image. I'm just going to bring it a bit closer so you can see the different pieces of it. I'm going to go in and out of focus a little bit. What are you guys noticing as you look at this card? And sometimes it's worth noticing if your reaction is, what the heck? I've noticed that there's actually a lot of value when you have a card that you look at that you don't resonate with, because I've noticed that sometimes what's happening with that is that there's an energy within yourself that you're not fully acknowledging or allowing. So as we start to talk about it, you might notice like, oh yeah, that's the thing that I haven't been allowing in. So if you get a what the heck, you know, like this card doesn't sit with me, even that's a useful response.
I think maybe I'm just feeding off the Finnegan stories and also the full moon, but I see sort of the presence of death within life. Like
Mm,
you have this very healthy young person, you know, based on her appearance, which is always bad, in the woods, you know, but she's kissing this bird that's skeletal. And there's also the lightning, or I see it as like a dead tree branch outside, and just the shape of the sort of spectral snake around it is like wrapping around her, so it's always around her and with her, and she has a very welcoming energy towards it, right, which is very peaceful.
mm-hmm.
Excuse Maggie, she's very upset about the fact that I locked her toy in the bathroom. So, yeah.
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. What else comes up for you guys?
Yeah, well, I was noticing that she's quite blissful. That
Mm-hmm.
use your word at peace, but this is for me a sense of bliss with this contradiction, and I am having a moment of wonderment around why the skeleton, why the snake, why the wings, and they're all drawn. Like the contrast of the imagery is making me think, I'm not sure what, but I just find that kind of perplexing. And then that the symbol on her head, I'm not sure what that symbol represents, but it seems like it's got a lot of presence.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm relying on you, Julie, to fill me in on that symbolism.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that for sure in a minute.
Yeah. But yeah, some
Yes.
kind of bliss and resolve within a, 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 uh, a torment.
Mm.
Mm.
Bliss and resolve within a torment. I love that phrase.
Mm.
The thing that strikes me about this card is her vulnerability, and yet at the same time, she appears completely at peace with it.
Yeah.
The creatures and even the dead tree branch for me are sort of evocative of, you know, like Halloween, spooky, monstrous, scary things. And they are, to me, like especially the serpent with the kind of like, I can't tell if they're legs or like what that is. It looks nothing I'd want wrapped around my body, to be blunt. But she seems so, as I think someone said, welcoming, but also just completely at peace with them. And she's in this forest environment, which is so soft and delicate. And there's, of course, a beauty. All of these cards are very beautiful, but there's also something in this about those contrasts that in theory, she could, maybe even should feel uncomfortable or the need to sort of protect herself in some way. But she's so welcoming of these potential dangers that don't seem dangerous in the way that she interacts with them. And then at the same time, in the way that they perhaps consequently react with her or interact with her.
Beautiful.
I'm noticing when you're talking about the connections, just how connected all of that is. Like everything is wrapped in these sort of round circular things. And, you know, her hands with the bird, the mouth with the bird, the moon or with the pentacles, the snake. And she's even standing on that snake, like floating on water, which could be pushing up, or it could be just preventing from completely sinking in. But if any of those things go out of balance, like that whole thing would just collapse, it seems to me. So it's like very reliant on the cycle of these
Beautiful.
I'm quite taken by the color contrast of the white and the rest of it. And the what at first I because it's an earth kind of element thing going on, I thought it was branches, but I see that more as lightning now coming out of her back. And you know, that skeleton is so stripped clean. And the pentacle being worn, sort of worn like a crown, or even as you show it now, more like balanced. She's making an effort to balance it on her head. And that thing going around the legs, which doesn't really have a head. The top of it to me looks like the end of a tail, and then it's got like a millipede. And but it also looks like an aerial view of a path.
Oh yeah.
Anyhow, that's
Or like a river. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. I just love what you guys have to offer when we look at these cards together, because inevitably you bring up some things that I haven't necessarily thought of. So I really appreciate all your thoughts about this image. So we'll just talk a little bit about the card and, you know, my thoughts about it. I might have some more to add as well. So Page of Pentacles. Pentacles is the earth element, as Mike was saying, and that's what that symbol is up on her head as a crown or something being balanced, is just the symbol of the pentacle, or sometimes it's the coin in the tarot decks. And so, you know, a lot of the time this is interpreted as a career and finance, but I've actually started to understand that Pentacles is often about the body, because it's really about material reality. And it's about, you know, what's happening in the real world, like the tangible world that you can feel and you can touch, and that plays into career and money, because that's sort of it's root chakra, it's security, it's safety, it's, you know, what allows you to do the things that you're doing materially in the world. And the page is someone who's very new on a journey, so often it's like a young person, and the idea here is that this person is like embarking on a new journey around, for me today, what I'm seeing is very much my relationship with my body. I love, Jane, that you kind of mentioned, I don't know why I hadn't put this together, but for those of you that don't know, I lost my dog a couple of weeks ago. And in my meditations, I don't necessarily kiss him like that, but I have a little embrace with him often. It's like the spirit of Finnegan when he was sort of at his best, at his most excited and happy and cuddly and all that. I sort of remember him that way, and I kind of hold him close to my heart in my meditations. And what sort of jumped out at me initially was, I wasn't thinking about that in particular, but just like a tenderness and an embrace with losses, as pertaining to what's being held in your body. So that can certainly be included for me. And I'm sort of personally in a moment of some things are happening with my body that are sometimes a bit difficult to deal with. And it's kind of a reminder, and this has been my intention lately, to just be so tender with what's happening in my body, and to really remember, and acknowledge those pieces that feel really uncomfortable to hold. So a couple of you were kind of talking about how like she's naked and these things are kind of like ghostly and they could be dangerous, but she's just embracing them with so much peace and love. And the tenderness of that kiss, that you would kiss a boo-boo, kind of, like it's a very sweet sort of, that's how my son kisses me lately, is that little, and so I think it's just this embrace of the parts of us that are often kind of hard to hold. So, for me right now, some of it is just like when my body is doing things I'm not crazy about, and it's difficult for me to kind of be with that, just to remember that my body is doing the best it can. It's always trying to help me. It's always, doing its best. And so I need to kind of honor that. I think something that comes up as well, and this might be a question for you guys too, sort of as we move out of the full moon and into the waning moon cycle. And sort of, we're not in fall yet, but we're kind of aware that it's coming, right? Like we're sort of aware that we're in the last sort of month of summer, how we think about it. And so as we're moving forward into whatever the next phase is for us, have we really spent time grieving the things that need to be grieved? Have we really said goodbye to the things that we've needed to say goodbye to? Have we really honored, the experiences that we've been through over, the last, you can think about it different ways. We're moving towards the autumn equinox in later September, which is that time where the energy really shifts from summer into fall, from the bright season to the dark. And that's a really contemplative time. So, what are we leaving behind as we move into this next cycle? And are there pieces that you have been forgetting to kiss tenderly? Are there pieces of yourself, your body, or things that have happened in your life that you've been turned away from, or not being present with? And is this a moment where actually you need to pause and face those uncomfortable experiences or parts of yourself or parts of your body or whatever it is, and just really hold them with this trust that you know how to be with these parts, and that they're not going to hurt you, that they actually are on your side, but that maybe we need to be in a practice of kind of remembering that. How does that feel for you guys? Any thoughts about that? That's resonating for some of you. Hey, you're nodding. Yeah, it's making sense.
It's interesting that has come up in that way, because I've been seeing a woman who does osteopathy, but she's also really an energy healer. She's very, very intuitive. And one of the things she said the last time I went for a treatment, she was touching some parts of my body, and she was asking me to notice, do you notice that tension there? Do you notice that discomfort? And I'm saying, yes, I feel that. And she asked me, she said, okay, so can you visualize that? Like go to that place and welcome it. Welcome the discomfort into your body. And I thought, wow, I know that's something that you've talked about in different ways as well, but it really is resonating for me now, like seeing this card and what you've just said, and that idea of welcoming those difficult feelings, physical feelings that we have in our bodies, and how that brings about a shift rather than trying to push it away.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of the work that I do with my one-on-one clients is around welcoming and honoring, your resistance or your fear of feeling the thing or whatever it might be. Like everything is there for a reason. And I've been reading a book on internal family systems, which is sort of it's a psychology technique that is sort of similar to what I like to do. And I've been thinking a lot about how it's an ecological perspective on psychology. And traditional therapy often has this kind of almost colonial way where it's like, this is my brain, this is what I want, I'm in charge, and all these parts that are not in line, they're going to get in line. I'm going to get rid of them, I'm going to change them, and I'm going to go for what I want to go for. Whereas this perspective is much more so like, that part of you that is just so cranky with your partner all the time. What is that part really trying to tell you? You know, what is that part really trying to do for you? How is that part trying to protect you? And when we can understand that, that part can like release the burdens that it's holding on to and really integrate with your energy in a way that is helpful and beautiful often and wonderful. And so, you know, in the practice that I do a lot of the time with my clients, it's like you just said, we're kind of in this uncomfortable moment of like, I don't want to kiss this part, but I'm going to be in this discomfort and I'm going to do it. And then ultimately when we do, it's almost like kissing the frog, sort of. It's sort of like, it seems like this really terrifying, ugly part. But as soon as we really look at it, we're like, oh my goodness, this is the part that's been protecting this vulnerability that I have. And I feel so much tenderness towards that. And now I know what to do with it. And it's just such a beautiful, tender, loving process that to me is also like decolonizing ourselves. You know, it's really allowing the ecology of our parts to all be present and work together rather than trying to overwhelm through some dominant part, essentially, which is, you know, I'm writing an article about that now, so you can think more about it later if it's interesting to you. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm just also seeing in this something I always think after the full moon, which is it's time to let go. Like it's okay to say goodbye to things that have dried up and desiccated and died. And that's just also, I think, a really good reminder for me. And there's this whole sense of balance, of course, but just that this that sense of, you know, it can be all caught up in it, but sometimes you have to consciously let it go. So, and say that it can go
Absolutely.
left.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the practices around the full moon is this sort of harvest or weeding, where you want to look at what have I been cultivating and what is bearing fruit and also what is not bearing fruit. So you kind of want to look at, you know, like you said, the parts that are dried up or desiccated, like it's just not working. And you have to kind of let that go. And I think even for me with Finnegan, like I wasn't ready, but it was happening, you know. And so I had to kind of come to terms with like these things happen in their own time. And sometimes you do have to let go, even if you feel like it's not how you wanted it, or it's something that you've been really hoping would last longer or whatever it is. Like sometimes things do happen in that way, and it is okay to sort of kiss it goodbye as well, right? Yeah. So for a very tender card for me today, for sure. Yeah. So anything else before we work that into our bodies? Some movement. Okay. Let me just set up my camera here. A little bit more. Okay, so let's enter into a really tender, loving practice with our bodies today. So I'm going to invite you to start in child's pose. And I'm hoping that that feels like kind of a tender, sweet place for you. If it doesn't, please feel free to take any shape that does work a little bit better for you, maybe laying on the belly, for example. And we'll just take a few moments to connect there. And you may have a specific intention that you would like to set based on everything that we just talked about with the tarot card. Okay, so take a moment to be with that intention if there's something specific there. And you may also want to just take a moment to be with an intention of tenderness, to listen to your body, to offer it what it needs, to show up with that loving trust that you can face all the parts of yourself, whatever may be present right now. Could you be in your child's pose in a way that is just a little bit more comfortable? You can stay here, or we'll take a little side stretch, reaching your arms over to the right side, stretching out with the left fingertips and drawing the left hip a little bit to the left. And then going over to the other side, to the left, reaching out through the right fingertips and kind of leaning your hips to the right. And gently coming back through center as you're ready and making your way to your hands and your knees. You may want to take a moment to stretch out one leg at a time behind you, tucking the toes under and pressing out through the back of the heel. And then we'll come into cat and cow. And this is something that we normally like to do just with a lot of intuition and gentleness. So you could be on your palms, you could be on your fists, you could even be seated. You could have your toes tucked or not. Generally, we inhale into a little bit of a back bend and exhale to curl and round the spine. But I encourage you to close your eyes and ask yourself again, what would be tender and loving to the body that I have today? And maybe to the letting go process that I'm doing, whatever that may look like, especially if you do have some grief in your life right now. One of the things that grief can be is exhausting. Okay. So just letting it be okay that maybe you don't have as much energy as usual if you are in a letting go process where there is some grief for you. There's side to side movement you can make. There's circles. Some of you might be feeling like you want to come up into a downward dog. You could. Or back into child's pose. That's cool too. And I'll invite the water wheel here so you can walk your hands a little bit farther forward. Knees are hips distance or wider, toes tucked. Bringing the hips back to the heels, draw the belly in, curl forward. Coming through a little mini plank and drawing your heart through your arms into as much of a back bend as feels good for you today. Bringing the hips back to the heels, curling the spine forward. And pulling through into as much or as little of a back bend as works for you. And if this isn't feeling good, totally fine to go back to your cat and cow. It's going as fast or as slow as feels right for you. So I'd love for you to have kind of a long rhythmic breath, but you don't have to worry too much about where the breath specifically is landing. And those of you with a little bit more of that full moon energy, you can roll forward towards plank, lift up your knees and press back into downward dog. Knees down, curling forward, lifting the knees and pressing back. That's going to be a little more of a core work exercise. So feel free to try that if you want to. Up to you. And just take a couple more of these at your own pace. And then next time you come forward, let's lower all the way down to the belly. And if you're not on your belly today, you could be in a seat. Okay, we'll take some nice lazy cobras. If you have a favorite variation, please feel free to take that one. I'm going to take just the cactus arms here, which you could again be doing seated. Press the tops of the feet down, kneecaps lift, pubic bone engages, and then just gently rising up as you inhale. And as you exhale, softening down. And if you're seated, just as you inhale, kind of drawing the shoulder blades together so that your chest opens. And as you exhale, you could draw them apart. So we'll just show that in case anybody needs it. Inhaling to open and exhaling to close. And again, just taking a few of these. No particular pace, no particular number that we need to do. Just letting it feel right for you today. Maybe some of you are finding that it feels good to lay on the belly. Feel free to do that. That's therapeutic too. We'll get there in a moment. Let's take one more. If it's feeling good for you to hold the lift, you can. And then all the way to your belly, and just take a nice little rest. So allowing the heels to drop apart, letting the bum relax. If it feels good, you could wobble your hips from side to side. And if you're seated, just relaxing your shoulders. Maybe there's movement, maybe stillness. And then let's make our way through child's pose. And eventually into a downward facing dog. And you could stay in child's pose if downward dog isn't suiting you today. And if you're okay up in your downward dog, just a little bend in the elbows. The shoulders are nice and deep into their sockets and you're hugging your elbows slightly together. You could absolutely be in stillness, or you could work with those little movements that we play with. So bending one knee at a time, swaying your hips. And again, the intention here is just so much tenderness, so much gentleness with what's actually happening with your body. You're welcome to close your eyes at any point, which helps us to get a little bit out of what is this supposed to look like and a little bit more into, well, what does this feel like for me today? And when you're ready, we can come into a standing forward bend with the feet at the top of the mat. Hips distance or wider is great. And again, take your favorite variation. So that could be elbows on bent knees. It could be hanging down, holding opposite elbows. It could be fingertips on the mat. Wherever you are, just take a moment to allow your neck and jaw to relax. You can certainly give them a shake. Just kind of let gravity help to release anything that you might be holding in the neck. And then take your sweet time to roll up, bending the knees, leaning back into the heels, and slowly curling to stand. When you get to standing, just take a moment there to feel, to breathe, to come back to your intention. And if there's a letting go that you're working with today, maybe it would feel good to just take a big exhale out your mouth. Okay, so I'll just invite you to take your feet a little bit wider, maybe shoulders distance apart. And the hands softly on the thighs. Bend the knees a little bit. And then we're going to tip the chin forward, tailbone back, and slide the hands down the legs. Then draw the belly in and curl back. Chin forward, tail back, exhaling. Draw the belly in, drop the head, and slide back up. So this is a little sequence that I learned from Qigong years ago. Yeah, this one's called crane breath. Again, whatever pace works for you is perfect. You can certainly close your eyes if that works for you today. And then we'll go the opposite way. So next time you exhale, you're going to draw your shoulders in, head down, bending the knees. And then the chin and the tail go back as we rise up. So this one's called turtleneck because there's this feeling of drawing into the shell. And then the turtle comes out of its shell to look forward and we rise up. That's it. So again, just closing your eyes if you like. Don't worry too much about what it looks like. Doesn't really matter. So just smoothing the energies along the spine. Take about one more. And then when that's complete for you, just coming to a soft standing. Receiving. Then reach your arms up to the sky as you inhale. Bring the hands together, trace them over your forehead, nose, then turn your nose down, fingers down, bend the knees a bit, and curl down towards the earth. Take a halfway lift, tracing your hands along your shins. And as you exhale to fold, trace your hands along the backs of the legs. Okay, then fingertips to the earth, halfway lift again. And as you exhale, step your right foot behind you. You can lower the knee down. You don't have to, and feel free to put it on some padding. And then reach your arms up to the sky. Hold opposite elbows at the top. Get nice and long through the sides of your waist. Try to keep your shoulders relatively soft. And then you can just gently side stretch to the left. Hug the thighs a little bit together. Okay, strong through the hips and legs. Gently pressing your hips forward. Okay, inhale up through center. As you exhale, take your right hand nice and wide off the mat and the left arm open to the sky. So we're in this nice open twist. You could be on palm, fingertips, block, whatever works for you. You can lift up the back knee or keep it down. Let the hips gently come forward and hug the shoulders onto the back. Nice and long through the sides of your neck. Inhale and then gently place the left hand on the inside of your leg. Heel toe your foot a little wider out to the side and turn the toes off on a little bit of an angle to the left. Sink your hips down. You might need to lengthen your stance a little bit. I'm going to untuck my toes, but press the top of the foot into the earth, lengthening the heart forward and up. You can definitely have your hands on blocks here. Okay, and we're going to do a little bit of a flow here and see how that goes. And you can, of course, ignore me on this. And I'm going to use the blocks for this just to give me a little bit more space. So on the inhale, I'm just lifting my heart forward. And on the exhale, I'm just going to bend down a little bit. It doesn't have to be far. Okay, inhale, lengthening my heart. And as I exhale, I'm kind of allowing the upper back to round slightly. I might bend the elbows a little bit. I'm just exploring what feels right for you here. And if that little flow is working for you, you can keep going with it, or you can bring your elbows down onto the blocks or the floor. You can pick up the left toes and angle the knee open. Just getting a little bit deeper into your hips. Nice deep breaths. Then climbing back up to your hands if you're down, hug the knee back into the midline, and then walk your hands back and gently straighten your legs. So you're gonna keep your leg on this little bit of an angle out to the side. Okay, you might need to adjust your stance a little bit to do that, and your hands are still on the inside of the front leg. So it's kind of like a wide angled half split here. And then again, a bit of a flow. So as you inhale, lengthen the heart forward, feel free to stay, or exhale, bend the elbows a little bit, folding down. And if it's working for you, just to be in that flow, lift as you inhale, exhale to fold. And if you're feeling like what works for you today is just being in stillness, please feel free to explore stillness. That's totally fine. And another way that you can work here is not stillness exactly, but it doesn't have to be that flow in particular. So, you know, there are different little experiments that you can do with what feels right for you in a shape like this. You can even close your eyes. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. And just see, where's the part that feels good for me today with this body. Beautiful. Okay, when you're ready, just looking forward, come up nice and high in your hands, and then very gently step your front foot back so that you're on your knees. Let the knees go a little bit wide. I've got my toes tucked under here. You can walk your hands forward, even on the blocks if you want to try that, and melt your heart. Okay, if you don't have the blocks there, it would just be Anahatasana, up on fingertips, melting the heart. My bum is just behind my knees here. And the weight is sort of coming back towards my legs. You could even sway the heart a little from side to side. Okay, inhale, and as you exhale, come to your belly. You can definitely stay there if you're not working on your belly today. Point your toes and just take one nice strange cobra. So the fingertips go wide off the mat to the right and the left, and you're just gently rising up. And then coming down. Okay, so one option is to rest on your belly, just hang out here. Okay. Another option is to come to hands and knees and work through your water wheels. Okay, and if you want to do that little bit more of a core strengthening water wheel, again, you'd be coming forward to half plank on your knees, engage the belly, lift the knees, press back to downward dog. Bring the knees down, curl forward. So about 3 of those. Just again, seeing where you're at, what your body needs today. And then rest. So you might be laying on your belly, you might be in downward dog, or you might be in child's pose. So again, the full moon hits us all a little differently depending on the cycle. And sometimes it comes with a lot, like some extra energy that we need to work out. I often find that that extra energy is the days before the full moon and on the full moon itself. The days after is when it's like the balloon has been popped or untied and the air is kind of sort of coming out of it. So often that's where we start to feel our energy changing. So just notice that for yourself. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, let's make our way back up to the top of the mat. So through downward dog, if that works for you, or just stepping your feet forward, and take a nice slow journey to standing, through rolling up if that works for you, or any other way that feels most safe and comfortable. Taking a moment in standing just to receive. Reach your arms up to the sky. Bring the palms together, thumbs to the forehead, nose, fingers turned down, bend the knees, curling to the earth. Halfway lift, stroking the hands along the shins, and then fold hands along the backs of the legs. Fingertips to the earth or the shins, halfway lift again, and then the left foot steps back. Lower the knee if that works for your body today. Reach the arms up. Hold opposite elbows. Draw the ribs gently in and softly side stretch to the right. Keep hugging the inner thighs a bit together and pressing the hips a bit forward, even as the ribs are drawing in. So this should feel like a nice side stretch and a little bit of an opening into the hip flexor, which is an area that it feels really good to stretch, partly because it tends to hold a lot of tension there, especially if there has been some stress. Okay, inhale up through center, then bring the left fingertips off the mat, right arm up, nice and wide. You can be on palm, fingertips, it's fine. You could be up on a block. Some of you might be lifting up the back leg. Others will keep the knee down, shoulders down the back. Inhale, and then gently bring the hands down to the inside of that front leg and just walk your foot out a couple of times. And if you have blocks, I do like them here. They're not necessary, but I find they just make it feel a little bit better. So the hips are forward, okay? You can untuck your back toes, just pressing into the top of the foot. And then we'll explore that little bit of a flow here. So as we inhale, we're just drawing the heart forward. And as we exhale, we're folding down, maybe bending the elbows a little bit. Inhale, lengthening, and exhale, fold. So don't worry too much about what this looks like. It doesn't really matter. Just kind of working into this flow a little bit. So nice. You can absolutely keep working there if that's working for you, or you can lower down a bit, turning the right toes out to the right, coming onto the outer edge of the foot, getting a little deeper into the hip opening. Keep your back foot active, okay, whether the toes are tucked or not, just try to make sure it's not kind of sickling. And just be wherever works for you here. I know some of you have some stuff going on with your hips. And when you're ready, climb back up to your hands. If you're down, gently lift the hips, and we're coming into this wide half split pose. So I'm still up on my blocks. They're still on the inside of my leg, and my right leg is kind of off on a little bit of an angle to the right. Foot is flexed. And again, we can try that little flow. So as we inhale, we're lifting. As we exhale, melting. And that might not look like much. It might be just your head mostly. Might be your whole spine moving. You might find that you'd rather be still in a place, which is perfect. You might find that you're flowing, but not in that specific direction, right? You might be kind of exploring what kind of movements feel good for you here or interesting. Is it the same as it was on the first side, or is it really different? Okay, and then when you're ready, again, we'll just gently slide that front foot back so that we're on our knees. Toes could be tucked. Knees, I like them a little bit wider than the hips, You could walk your blocks forward if you're still using them, or just come up onto your fingertips and take this little anahatasana, kind of heart hammock, maybe swaying a bit from side to side. And then you can come to your belly. Take a strange cobra, fingertips wide, just one, lifting, releasing, and you may want to rest on your belly. That's a really lovely place to be. Or you can come up to hands and knees and work through your water wheels. You could add the plank pose variation there. Just take a moment, seeing what you need. Beautiful. Okay, so we'll meet in downward dog. And then I'll just invite you to either, actually, what I'll invite you to do is walk your hands back to your feet so that you're in a standing forward bend. And then some of you, if you're comfortable, will come into a squat, okay? Others will roll up to standing. So you can do this next little thing either in a squat or standing. If you're in a squat, you can certainly sit on a block. You can have a little prop underneath your heels. And if you're standing, you can just take your feet a little bit wider than your hips and just soften your knees a little bit, okay? And then everyone, you can release your head forward. And if you're in the squat and it feels safe, let your hands come forward too. So you're in this kind of little, I don't know what you'd call it, kind of like a little, it's a little hunch actually, okay? And then just gently roll your head from side to side. So if you're standing, it's the same thing for the upper body. So you're just allowing your chin to come forward and gently rolling your head from side to side. If you're really comfortable in the squat, you could also try holding opposite elbows or even interlacing your fingers behind the back of the head, but we're not yanking, okay? Or pulling super hard. It would just be to help guide the spine. This nice little neck release. Okay, eventually coming through center, gently rolling your head up, and then we'll meet in a seat. So you can take your hands behind you, set your bum down if you're in a squat. If you're standing, just gently come down in the way that feels safest to you. And then you can wash your knees from side to side a couple of times. Okay, and then we're going to take a hip opener. So if you have a favorite one, please feel free to take that one. Otherwise, you're going to be in seated with me and extend your legs. Take your right ankle across your left thigh and bend the left leg until you feel a little bit of a stretch. Fingertips behind you, heart to the shin, gently releasing the outer hip. And yes, we're doing a lot of hip opening today, which is great for helping to release things physically from the body. And I find that this one is just as nice to get into the outer hip specifically. Most of us need that. Okay, and then gently switch sides. So we're going to straighten out the left leg, release, give the legs a little wobble, and then take the left ankle onto the right side, then the right leg. You can sway a bit if you want, or just be still. Beautiful. And then when that feels complete for you, gently release the legs. Again, you can give them a little shake. And then if you're not already, go ahead and lay down. If you're not laying down today, just stay seated. Okay, and then hug your right knee into your chest, holding on to it with your interlaced fingers, and extend the left leg out long. Hug the knee a little bit wide towards your right shoulder as you press out through the left heel. Breathe into your belly. Okay, and then we'll take this into a little bit of a twist. So you can bring your knee right across your body into a one-kneed twist. You can stack the knees together if that feels safe, or even put a block between them, or just continue to work with the one-kneed twist. The knee does not have to touch the floor, okay? And if you're seated with me, just sitting up nice and tall, if you're pregnant, you're gonna twist away from your bent knee, okay? And if you're not pregnant, you can twist towards your bent knee. You gently come back through center. You can hug both of your knees into your chest. Maybe rock a little from side to side. And then switch sides when you're ready. Left knee in towards the chest, right leg out long. Hugging the knee a bit wide towards the shoulders. You extend out through the right leg. Breathing into the belly. And then we'll take this into a twist. So bringing the knee across your body, just as far as feels right for you. It does not have to touch the floor at all. You could also stack the knees if that's more comfortable, put something in between them. Okay, so this should feel like just a nice, easeful twist for you. And again, if you're seated with pregnancy, or if you just don't want too much compression in your belly, you'll turn away from the knee. If you're okay with some compression, you'll just turn towards the knee. Gently returning to center. When you're ready, you can hug both of your knees into your chest. And I'd recommend happy baby, letting the knees go wide towards the sides, soles of the feet up towards the ceiling. You can hold whatever's handy to hold, it's all good. And just rock a little bit from side to side to even out the spine. If you've been seated with me, you can have the soles of your feet together, knees open wide. You could do a little butterfly there, or even a seated cat and cow if you want. And then we'll make our way into our Shavasana. And some of you may want to take a few moments for reflection before Shavasana. So if you want to take a moment to do some writing in your journal or sit for meditation before we come to rest in full Shavasana, please feel free to take that. Shavasana means the most comfortable that you could be. So for most of us, it's laying on the back, but it could be laying over a prop, it could be legs up the wall, it could be laying on your side. You could even be seated if that's where you feel safest and most comfortable. A place where you can rest and receive the work of our practice passively. And if you've been in a reflection and you'd like to take Shavasana now, you're welcome to. We'll just take a couple more minutes. So you're welcome to stay in your rest as long as you would like to. When and if you feel ready to come out of this rest, you can begin to deepen your breath. You can wiggle your fingers and toes. Rock your head from side to side. You can reach your arms up over your head. Draw your knees in and roll to one side. In your own time, making your way up to a seat. You could have your hands together in front of your heart, over top. You could even take Lotus Mudra, which is a nice gesture of letting go. And then bow your mind to your hands, taking a moment to honor and acknowledge your practice and everything that was held within it today. To honor and acknowledge the long and complex lineage of teachers that is with us in our practice. Honoring and acknowledging the sacredness of the land that we practice on. Thank you for sharing that practice with me.